So back in the day, I used to do this versus style content on the channel where I would take two servants that had a similar role and I would compare and contrast them to find out who was better, but there wasn't a whole lot of effort put into those, so I would like to, shockingly enough, put more effort into these versus style videos, and I'm going to start off with this one talking about Ibuki and Summer Musashi, as this is more of a hot button comparison that is going on right now. And to make things fair, we're going to be using no plug suit for the comparison, so we have to rely on how good they are as units by themselves. They'll still both get double Castoria, and they are both NP2, so there's no discrepancy between NP levels. The only issue is that Ibuki is on my JP side and Musashi is on my NA side, and so we aren't going to be able to use Black Grail, as my Black Grail on NA is max limit broken level 100, my one on JP is level 40, and I don't want there to be any bias towards Musashi because she has the way better CE. Instead, I was able to find a CE that is beneficial for both of them, and I have it at the same level on both versions of the game, and that is Poolside Bard. Now, ignore the Buster buff that it gives. Mainly what is important about this CE is that there's no starting gauge, so we have to burn all of Castoria's skills to get them to 100%, and we cannot rely on future nodes, being able to use, say, Castoria's Charisma that we saved up. We have to burn all of it. It also gives them positive effects of NP gain and NP damage, so it's not like we just threw on some useless CE. It still helps them out in these farming nodes. And yes, we are pretty much going to be using this as a farming comparison. If you would like a follow-up video where I take these two different various CQs or boss fights and kind of compare how they do, I would be perfectly fine with doing that. Just let me know in the comments down below if you would like a follow-up video that is more than just farming and focuses more on how they fight in Challenge Quest, Advanced Quest, stuff along those lines. And if you end up enjoying this video, don't forget to leave a like on it, as that shows that you would like me to do more of this content. And if there's, I guess, other people you would like to see me compare and contrast, be sure to put that in the comments down below as well. But let us move on to the first test, and if any one of them fails this first test against casters, that is going to be some very fraudulent behavior. And the reason this would be a bad look is that casters, alongside moon cancers, give you the most refund in the game, meaning, it's easier to loop against these targets. So for that reason, because, no one's expecting them to fail against these, I decided to bring them against the caster daily on the highest difficulty, because it's a 2-3-2 node, meaning they don't have the luxury of basically having a free first wave to refund their NP. And I also think this shows the strengths of both of these servants. Musashi is the superior looper, whereas Ibuki has the battery to fall back on. For Musashi, we immediately use the NP gain skill on our Mystic Code, and that allows us against two enemies to refund over 100% of our NP, whereas Ibuki is not able to meet that same level, but she has the battery to fall back on, so she can still pop that. And then against the second node, where there are 3 enemies, they are both more than capable of refunding 100% or more of their NP back, and then they're able to take out the final enemy, which isn't the largest, granted, but I wanted to show more of their looping ability, because the whole point of this comparison is who is able to loop better, because you can do all sorts of things to augment their damage. If we weren't able to clear this, we could always slap on the Black Grill that we got from the anniversary, or we could plug suit in a Lady Avalon, a Waver, or even an Oberon to further increase our damage. What we need to see is how good are they as loopers and who is able to push through these nodes with their kit. And for casters, even against a weirder node, they're both able to get the job done. The only X factor here that you might be thinking of is Ibuki's Earth Power Mod. That does actually trigger on the Lamias on the first node and the Ifrit that spawns in the second node, but Sanzo, who is the boss of this node, is man attribute, and she's still able to clear that, which again, even though it's not the largest enemy, still being able to clear around 200k HP, that's still good enough for about 90 plus nodes. Not 90 plus mind you, but it's still a decent threshold for them both to be able to clear, especially for someone like Ibuki, who is able to down the main big quote-unquote servant enemy at the end without her power mod. I feel like that is not nothing and should be taken into consideration, as that does mean she could potentially do even better against an Earth attributed enemy, which will come into play later. Now, we did move pretty quickly through the casters, and that's because there's nothing surprising about two top-tier loopers being able to get through a caster node, even if we did try to spice it up a little bit by making the first wave a little bit weird by only having 2 enemies, or denying Ibuki's power mod on the largest enemy by having her fight a man attribute person. But here's the interesting part. Going up against Berserkers, and this is always the hardest thing for a looper to do, because Berserkers, in contrast to casters, give you the least amount of refund possible, and as you're going to see at the beginning of this clip, it's not very good for Musashi in this test. She does refund a good amount of her NP. She gets up to 88%, which is not bad. It does mean if we had a plug suit, she would easily be able to clear this. You would plug suit in a Waver, an Oberon, a Lady Avalon, really anybody that can get her 20%, and even in the case of Lady Avalon, give her a massive NP game buff with the arts buff. She would get 100%, and then in the case of Lady Avalon, she'd refund her NP. In the case of Oberon or Waver, sure, she'd probably whiff again at about 80%, but you still got Waver's first skill with the 30% to get her back to 100, and you have Oberon's second skill to get her over 100% as well. But again, we're not using Plug Suit because Plug Suit definitely swings things way more in Ibuki's favor, because with Plug Suit, Ibuki can do some pretty disgusting things. I mean, we're talking being able to farm against 2-2-1 enemy nodes, where things are just not really supposed to be possible for other loopers. She can kind of power through it. And so this does showcase the weakness of Musashi as a Year 4 unit, which again, you can't really criticize her for. If you were playing during Year 4 and you remember the type of nodes we were getting, I mean, she was completely saucing all over those. But now we have 90+, and now we even have 90++, and as you can see with Ibuki, she is able to pretty much just coast through these. You know, she pops her battery after, you know, getting only about 88% of her refund as well, and then you pop the NP gain skill, and boom, she's able to get her NP back, and she's able to finish off these enemies. And because these enemies in the Lost Belt 4 node that everybody seems to love to use, I went ahead and did a different one, because instead of her fighting earth enemies, I wanted her to fight sky attribute enemies, or at least that's pretty much the only other thing I was left with. I scoured a bunch of the other free quests, and it turns out Ibuki's power mod is just too good. All of the Berserker free quest nodes are always against earth attribute enemies. It's just too good of a power mod apparently, but the one in Agartha that also happens to have some rather large enemies are about the only people that are not earth attribute, and against them, she was able to get the job done in a similar way. So it's not just because she is the earth attribute power mod. If anything, that's just for the damage. As you'll see at the very end of this node, she's not able to clear this 200k plus enemy that doesn't have the earth attribute power mod, but she is able to mop it up with crits, which I do at least want to skew things a little bit for her and say that Ibuki does provide stars on her battery. She does have star weight, so doing face cards with her is a little bit easier, but it's not like it's all that difficult for Musashi either. If you find her cards, she's probably going to do decent damage because Berserker, they just do damage. That's kind of their main thing. But it is just really unfortunate for Musashi that as these nodes get harder, you can kind of see her aging with the time. And that doesn't mean you can't use her. I've used Musashi to get through 90+ nodes when people told me that you couldn't do that. I just more had to rely on multi-core setups and, you know, using somebody else to take out, say, Wave 2 or Wave 1 for Musashi, and then she would pretty much do the rest. And that's more of just an aging with the times. You know, that's just how, you know, Year 4 units are not going to hold up as good as Year 7, Year 8, and even Year 9 servants that we're now starting to get over on the JP side of things. It's just a natural power creep. And unfortunately for somebody like Musashi, it really is as simple as tossing her a 20 to 30% battery and she would really be cooking, but I do like the direction they took her on the JP side of things where she has this insane power mod against sabers. It gives her a really good niche that does kind of step on the toes of a lot of the archers. You know, Durga, who just came out, is not too happy with her getting that buff, but hey, it at least gives her some type of edge that, hey, if you're going to be going into a saber node, you might actually pick up your Musashi off the shelf for a multi-core setup because she's got the large power mod against them, and, you know, Ibuki can only hit earth, and I say only as if it's not all that good, but there is a silver lining for Musashi over here. I did decide to throw her a little bit of a bone. And that aforementioned bone is taking her up against Assassins. Assassins do also give you less refund back. Not as bad as Berserkers, but they do still give you less refund back. And so I wanted to see if, well, maybe Musashi could still get it done against them. And she passed that with flying colors. In the first example here, you'll see that she's basically might as well be farming against casters, as she's getting like 130% to 118% refund back against these guys. But I thought that maybe it's because they have too little HP and that she's getting that extra hit of overkill, and maybe, you know, it's just too good to be true. Maybe she's just not cut out to be able to do Assassin. She really is washed and is not up with the time. So I brought her to one of the Olympus stages that has 3 waves of only assassins, and the starting wave does have pretty strong enemies, stronger than the Lost Belt 4 node with the Berserkers, and even then she gets an even 100% of her NP back. And so Musashi is not fully washed. I do want to show here at the very end that even though Ibuki is more built for the current content, it's not like Musashi is completely washed. she still has absolutely insane NP refund. I mean, that second skill is no joke. There's a reason she was pretty much the best looper in the game before Castoria came out, because they gave her big attack buff, she's a berserker, can bring her anywhere, and she's got massive NP gain. I mean, what's more to want with this servant? I mean, she just does everything you would want a looper to do. That being said, I did allude at the very beginning of this video to doing, say, a part 2 to this video where we kind of go over challenge quests and see how they compete in that arena, because while I do think Ibuki definitely takes the prize here when we compare them as farmers, if we compare them into challenge quests, things might start to skew a little bit more in Musashi's favor. But let me know if that is something you'd be interested in the comments down below. Also, again, if you enjoyed this video, it did take a little bit more effort than normal. Many apples were harmed in the production of this video, and I was saving a lot of those for the lottery, so a like would go a long way. Theatrical performances aside, if you do enjoy the video, like it at your own volition. If you like it enough, you can subscribe to the channel. If you want to see me do stuff like this live, I go live on my Twitch every single weekday starting at about 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Monday, Wednesday, Friday is FGO. Tuesday, Thursday is going to be, non-FGO related content. I'm picking Star Rail up again, so we'll probably be doing that as well as Elden Ring on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But if you can't make it over to Twitch, don't worry. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I got you on YouTube, as I am trying out dual streaming. Because, I understand some people have, like, YouTube Premium, so they don't want to go over to Twitch and also, sub to a channel to not have to get ads. They can just use their YouTube Premium over here and get no ads. Or maybe you just like YouTube more. I'm trying to cater to everybody, but if there's a versus video that you would like to see me do, you can also drop that in the comment section down below as well. Let's try to keep it topical though, more recent servants. I don't want to dive back to like year 1, but then again, if it's interesting enough and both servants are like good enough and have enough buffs, we could probably do that. But with all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.